a 21-year-old woman, magazine cover beauty, Hollywood dreams, and an apartment that was supposed to explode, but didn't. When police entered that bungalow in Santa Monica, they found something they never expected. A crime scene perfectly staged to vanish. Gas was leaking. A lit candle waited for the fatal spark, and in the middle of it all, a lifeless young woman. The killer's DNA was everywhere, literally. On the victim's clothes, on the doorknob, on the stove, on the cell phone, and even in her throat. An open and shut case, right? Wrong. Even with the killer's DNA spread all over the scene, no one was ever convicted. Today, we're talking about the case of Juliana Redding. A story of ambition, obsession, a millionaire doctor who fled the country, and a woman everyone believes is a murderer, yet walked out of court completely free. Get ready, because this is one of the most outrageous and most infuriating stories in American justice. Juliana Maureen Redding was born on October 25, 1986, in Tucson, Arizona. She was the eldest daughter of Patricia and Greg Redding and grew up alongside her younger brother, Patrick, in a traditional Catholic home filled with love and strong values. From an early age, Juliana stood out. It wasn't just her striking beauty that drew attention wherever she went. It was her presence, the way she carried herself. At only 8 or 9 years old, she was already accompanying her grandmother to corporate meetings, completely at ease in environments that would intimidate many adults. Her school counselor, Sister Allen Hall, described Juliana with words rarely used for a teenager. She had a spirit of openness and a love for life that radiated to others. She was a natural leader who inspired people. During her years at Salpointe Catholic High School, Juliana wasn't just another student, she was that student. She played golf for 4 years, joined the track and field team, played soccer, participated in the recycling club, and served on the student council. And somehow, she still found time to help children with learning difficulties at the local church. Juliana was charitable, graceful, responsible, and she had big dreams. At first, she planned to follow in her grandmother's footsteps and build a career in the corporate world. She even chose the University of Arizona to major in business administration. But during her performances in the school theater, something shifted. She fell in love with the stage, with the camera, with the power of storytelling through art. And so, in 2005, some sources say 2006, Juliana made a decision that would change her life forever. She moved to Los Angeles, the city of dreams, the place where stars are born, and where thousands of young talents are crushed by the brutal reality of the entertainment industry. Juliana enrolled at Santa Monica College, where she studied full-time. To support herself, she worked a series of temporary jobs, as a waitress in upscale restaurants, a receptionist in hotels, and an assistant in medical offices. At the same time, she was chasing opportunities as an actress and model. And you know what? She was making progress. Slowly but surely, her persistence began to pay off. She landed a small role in an independent film, did a photo shoot for Maxim magazine. They weren't lead roles or a Vogue cover, but it was a start. Proof that her dreams weren't impossible. By 2008, Juliana was 21 years old and living alone in a charming bungalow on Sentinel Avenue in Santa Monica, a coastal, tourist-friendly city just 20 minutes from Hollywood, the perfect place for a young actress on the rise. She kept in close touch with her parents, daily calls, texts, updates about her life, her dreams, her next steps. The family was close, tight-knit, and very protective, especially once they discovered who was coming into Juliana's life. His name was Dr. Munir Uwaida, an orthopedic surgeon, businessman, owner of several medical clinics, horse farm in Germany, beach house, mansion in Beverly Hills. The man was a multimillionaire, and he was 41 years old when he met Juliana. She was working as a receptionist at an upscale restaurant. He was a regular customer. Impressed by her beauty and charm, he offered her a job. Personal assistant at his clinic, with a salary far higher than what she was earning. Juliana accepted. What began as a professional relationship quickly evolved into something more. Much more. Munir didn't just hire her. He spoiled her. Lavish jewelry, designer clothes, trips to luxury resorts. And the most memorable gift, a white Range Rover. Soon, Juliana was living in one of his Beverly Hills mansions. To outsiders, it looked like a modern fairy tale, a young dreamer meeting a wealthy man who transforms her life. But to those closer to her, something about the relationship felt unsettling. Munir's attention was intense, almost obsessive. He constantly talked about marriage, promised to buy her a Lamborghini for her 21st birthday, told Juliana's father, Greg, "I can give your daughter the world." And it was that growing connection with Greg that would soon become crucial to the story. Munir proposed a business partnership. Greg, who worked in the pharmaceutical field, would manage a new pharmaceutical company under Munir's supervision. It was a financially attractive, tempting offer. But Greg, experienced and cautious, felt that something wasn't right. So he decided to investigate. What he discovered destroyed everything. Dr. Munir Uwaida was married. He had 3 children living in Lebanon. When he moved to the United States to build his medical career, he left behind an entire family. He visited them occasionally, sent money, but kept everything an absolute secret. Juliana had no idea. The other women he showered with gifts, cars, jewelry, luxury trips, didn't know either. And his family back in Lebanon likely had no clue about the double life Munir was leading in California. When Greg showed his daughter the documents, Juliana was devastated. In October 2007, on the eve of her 21st birthday, she ended the relationship. She moved out of the Beverly Hills mansion and rented the bungalow in Santa Monica with her father's financial help. But even after the breakup, Juliana and Munir kept in touch to some extent. They even traveled together to Las Vegas to celebrate a friend's birthday. It's unclear whether they briefly reconciled or if those were just casual encounters. What we do know is that, eventually, Juliana cut off all contact for good. Meanwhile, Greg continued to negotiate the creation of the pharmaceutical company with Munir. But as his legal team reviewed the details, more and more red flags began to appear. Concerns about the company's structure, potential legal implications, and suspicious business operations. In March 2008, Greg made a decision. He would back out of the deal. On March 10th, he sent a formal letter to Munir, informing him that he would not proceed with the agreement. 5 days later, Juliana was dead. Saturday, March 15th, 2008. Juliana went about her day as usual. She played a round of golf, came home, watched reruns of Seinfeld on TV, and exchanged messages with her boyfriend, John Gilmore, a relationship marked by constant breakups and reconciliations. Around 9:45 p.m., neighbors heard strange noises coming from her bungalow, loud thuds, furniture being dragged, and screams. But it only lasted a few minutes. No one thought much of it. Maybe a couple's argument, nothing serious enough to call the police. At approximately 10:00 p.m., Juliana's cell phone made a call to 911. The call was disconnected before it went through. After that, silence. The next day, Sunday, March 16th, Patricia tried to reach her daughter all day. Calls, messages, nothing. Juliana wasn't answering. At first, Patricia thought her daughter was just busy. But when neighbors said they hadn't seen Juliana all day, and that her dog had been barking nonstop inside the house, panic set in. Patricia called the Santa Monica Police Department and requested a welfare check. When officers arrived at the bungalow, they immediately noticed a strong, alarming smell. Natural gas. Firefighters were called. They forced the door open, and what they found inside was a scene meticulously prepared not to exist. In the kitchen, one of the stove burners was on, leaking gas. In the living room, on the coffee table, a candle was burning. Any spark could have caused a massive explosion that would have obliterated all evidence, and possibly killed the neighbors as well. But for some reason, poor ventilation, bad timing, a miscalculation, the explosion never happened. And when officers entered the bedroom, they found Juliana. She was lying on the bed, lifeless. She had been dead for several hours. The crime scene was brutal. Clear signs of a violent struggle. Furniture out of place, objects shattered. Juliana had fought desperately for her life. The initial examination revealed marks consistent with strangulation. Under her fingernails there was skin, but it was her own. While being attacked, She had tried to pull her assailant's hands from her neck and ended up scratching herself in the process. Forensic teams began collecting DNA samples throughout the bungalow. The doorknob, her cell phone, Juliana's clothes, the stove, a dish in the kitchen sink, and, most disturbingly, biological traces inside her throat. While awaiting the DNA results, investigators started interviewing people close to Juliana. The first name that came up was John Gilmore, her on-and-off boyfriend. Greg Redding warned police about John's violent behavior. He had once kicked in Juliana's car door and even tried to break into her apartment during arguments. He was unstable, aggressive. John was located and brought in for questioning. He didn't deny his turbulent history. He admitted he had argued with Juliana on the night of the murder, but over the phone. He said he called to tell her he was going out drinking with friends. She got upset and hung up on him. They exchanged text messages until around 10 p.m., when she stopped replying. John also admitted that he went to her apartment the next morning. He saw her car in the driveway and noticed a candle burning through the security gate. But when Juliana didn't answer, he left. Police verified his alibi. Surveillance footage placed him at a convenience store, a Jack-in-the-Box, and a party between 9:45 and 10:15 p.m., precisely the estimated time of the crime. Multiple witnesses confirmed his presence at the party. John Gilmore was cleared as a suspect. And then came the twist that changed everything. The DNA results arrived and revealed something completely unexpected. All of the DNA found at the crime scene, on the doorknob, the cell phone, Juliana's clothes, the stove, even inside her throat, belonged to the same person. A woman, not a man. A woman. That discovery completely changed the course of the investigation. Detectives began interviewing every woman in Juliana's social and professional circles. Friends, co-workers, neighbors, acquaintances. 41 women had their DNA collected. None matched. The police were at a dead end, until they decided to dig deeper into Juliana's personal life in the months leading up to the crime. And that's when one name resurfaced. Dr. Munir Uwaida. The tumultuous relationship. The painful breakup. The revelation of his double life, and most suspiciously, the collapse of the business deal between Munir and Greg, just 5 days before the murder. Investigators developed a theory. Munir was involved, but if the DNA belonged to a woman, he hadn't committed the crime himself. He had sent someone. Kelly Sue Park, 44 years old, 6 feet tall, an intimidating presence. Officially, she was a real estate broker, but behind the scenes, Kelly was much more than that. She was the person Munir called when there was a problem to solve. His trusted assistant. His fixer. Between 2008 and 2009, Kelly received over $1 million from Munir through multiple transactions. But one payment in particular caught investigators' attention. 3 weeks after Juliana's murder, Kelly received $250,000 from Munir. The police didn't want to alarm Kelly or Munir. If either realized they were under investigation, they could flee the country. So detectives placed Kelly under covert surveillance. For weeks, they followed her every move, waiting patiently for a chance to collect a DNA sample without her knowledge. Eventually, they got their break. Kelly tossed a cigarette butt onto the street. Investigators retrieved it and sent it for analysis. When the results came back, they had their answer. Kelly Sue Park's DNA matched perfectly with the DNA found throughout the crime scene. June 17, 2010. Kelly Sue Park was arrested and formally charged with the murder of Juliana Redding. Bail was set at $3.5 million. And that's where one of the strangest parts of this story begins. The bail was paid. Prosecutors strongly believed that Munir had provided the money, but they couldn't prove it. There was no direct bank transfer. No paper trail linking him to the payment. Kelly was released. And then, something even more suspicious happened. Munir disappeared. Literally. He left Los Angeles and went to Lebanon, where he has remained ever since. Lebanon has no extradition treaty with the United States. Munir knew that. And he never came back. Meanwhile, the case against Kelly was being prepared for trial. May 2013. 5 years after Juliana's death, Kelly Sue Park finally went to trial in downtown Los Angeles. The prosecution presented a case that seemed solid, irrefutable. Kelly's DNA was everywhere. On the front doorknob, on Juliana's cell phone, on her clothes, on the stove where the gas had been turned on, and, most damning of all, inside Juliana's throat. In addition, there was a fingerprint belonging to Kelly and a drop of her blood on a plate in the kitchen sink. Prosecutors argued that Kelly acted as Munir's female James Bond, a strong, intimidating woman who had previously threatened others who got in the way of his business. The prosecution's theory was this: Munir sent Kelly to intimidate Juliana, perhaps to pressure her into convincing her father to resume the business deal, or simply to scare her. But something went wrong. Juliana fought back, and Kelly killed her. The financial evidence supported the theory: $250,000 transferred shortly after the murder, and over $1 million across 18 months. It looked like a closed case. But the defense had an ace up its sleeve. Defense attorney George Bueller didn't try to deny that Kelly's DNA was at the crime scene. He couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming. Instead, he presented an alternative theory, one so far-fetched, so convoluted, that it should have been dismissed immediately. But it wasn't. Bueller argued that Kelly's DNA had been secondarily transferred to the crime scene. Let's break down how he built that argument. Juliana had lived for several months in Munir's Beverly Hills mansion. Kelly, as Munir's close associate and friend, also spent time there, possibly even stayed there for a few weeks. When Juliana ended the relationship and moved into her bungalow, she packed her things quickly: clothes, kitchen utensils, towels. The defense argued that it was possible Juliana had taken a towel that Kelly had used months earlier. That towel would still contain traces of Kelly's DNA. Now comes the crucial part of the theory. On the night of the murder, the real killer, someone unknown, supposedly used that same towel to wipe down the scene. In doing so, they transferred Kelly's DNA onto every surface they touched. Absurd? Yes. Extremely unlikely? Absolutely. But a forensic expert, called by the defense, testified in court that secondary DNA transfer is technically possible. Difficult, but possible. And that was enough to plant doubt. The defense didn't need to prove Kelly's innocence, only to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. And they did. After 2 weeks of trial and 7 long days of deliberation, the jury returned with its verdict. Kelly Sue Park. Not guilty. The courtroom erupted. Juliana's family and friends screamed, cried, shouted at Kelly. "Murderer, go to hell. There's something very wrong here." Kelly broke down in tears. Her supporters embraced her, relieved. The jurors quietly exited through a back door, offering no statements to the press. Patricia and Greg Redding released a statement. "Our family is deeply saddened and shocked. We believe the evidence against the defendant was overwhelming, and that justice was not served." Kelly Sue Park walked out of the courthouse a free woman. Munir Uwaida remained in Lebanon, never facing a single charge. And Juliana Redding? She remains without justice. The story doesn't end there. In 2015, Dr. Munir Uwaida was charged with leading one of the largest medical fraud schemes in California's history, $150 million worth. The accusations included allowing unlicensed assistants to perform surgeries, prescribing unnecessary expensive medications, fraudulently billing insurance companies, paying kickbacks to attorneys for patient referrals. More than 20 patients were left permanently disfigured after undergoing procedures they believed were performed by Munir, but were actually carried out by people with no medical qualifications. Munir was arrested in Germany. And guess who else was arrested in the same case? Kelly Sue Park. She was charged with conspiracy, fraud, and active participation in the scheme. Her initial bail was set at $18 million, later reduced to $1.6 million, and it was paid. Kelly was released once again. Munir was also released in Germany, for reasons that have never been explained, and returned to Lebanon. In 2020, all charges against Kelly in the medical fraud case were mysteriously dismissed by a judge. No explanation was ever given. So, what really happened to Juliana Redding? Everyone who studies this case reaches the same conclusion. Kelly Sue Park killed Juliana Redding under the orders of Dr. Munir Uwaida. The evidence is overwhelming. The DNA, the money transfers, the timing, the connection, the flight of Munir. But everyone believes is not enough in a courtroom. And sometimes, a clever defense, or a flawed justice system, allows someone to walk free, even when their DNA is literally in the victim's throat. Juliana's mother, Patricia Redding, found solace in painting, a way to keep her daughter's memory alive. She paints in Juliana's room, feeling connected to her through colors and brush strokes. "Sometimes it feels like we're still stuck in 2008, she said in an interview. Like we never really managed to move on. Greg Redding lives with the guilt of having introduced Munir to his daughter, of continuing business talks with him even after the breakup. And Juliana, she never got the chance to fulfill her dreams. She never opened that boutique, never built the business empire she planned, never became the star she could have been. Everything was taken from her, in one violent night in March 2008, by a woman who walked free, and by a man who was never even questioned. This is the case of Juliana Redding, a disturbing reminder that having DNA, having evidence, having a strong theory, sometimes it's still not enough, because in the end, it's not about what you know. It's about what you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And in this case, one reasonable doubt, no matter how implausible, was enough to leave a murder unpunished. If you believe Kelly Sue Park is guilty, let us know in the comments. If you think the defense was right and the DNA really was accidentally transferred, I want to hear your thoughts too. And if, like the Redding family, you feel that justice failed, you're not alone. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next case.